Hillary Clinton just got her revenge against Donald Trump and these despicable MAGA Republicans. They required her to take a deposition regarding Epstein, while Howard Lutnick, Donald Trump, and the entire Epstein class Donald Trump is protecting are too scared to sit for a deposition. Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, former Senator Clinton, who, by the way, I interned for back on Capitol Hill when I was in undergrad at GW, she said, you know what? I'm happy to testify. Let's do it in public. Let's testify before the entire world and let's make a hearing about it. The MAGA Republicans said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do it secret. We want to do it in private. And former Secretary of State Clinton's like, okay, I guess we'll do it that way. But let's follow the rules then. And she's like, I still want this to be public, but okay, MAGA Republicans and Trump, if you want this concealed, I will respond to the subpoena, I guess, and I'll show up and I'll have my deposition taken. So the deposition took place today in New York, in her hometown, and she sat there, and then she discovered that Lauren Boebert and some of these MAGA Republican Congress members who were there were sneaking pictures of her. They were trying to take pictures of her and then send it to right-wing influencers like Benny Johnson. And then Hillary Clinton's like, okay, look, first up, you're violating the rules. If you want to do that type of stuff, let's just have the press in here and let's have everybody see what these MAGA Republicans are doing. I want to speak to the world. And then James Comer, who chairs the oversight committee, is like, no. This goes down in secret. So after the MAGA Republicans disrupted the deposition by taking photos of her and violating the rules and sending them to right-wing MAGA media influencers or whatever they call themselves, the deposition resumed. Hillary Clinton's like, can we do it in public? Can we have the press come into the room now? Let's do it in public. And then James Comer was like, no, we're not doing it. So then the deposition resumed. She answered all of the questions. You had lots of questions about the Clinton Global Initiative. You had questions about the most random things that were there. And the Democrats are like, release that transcript right now. We want the world to see what went down. It's also notable that these MAGA Republican Congress members, in addition to not taking the deposition of Howard Lutnick and other people that this cabal is protecting, especially, shouldn't Trump be deposed? Because he's like the main star, if you call it that, he's the main character, if you will, in the Epstein files. But then they don't show up to Les Wexner's deposition in Ohio, the guy a co-conspirator of Epstein, who funded Epstein, but they were all here for Hillary Clinton trying to take social media photos of her for these MAGA influencers. So utterly weird and bizarre. They refused to allow the press in after Hillary Clinton said, invite him in. Let's have everybody watch. Doesn't that tell you just about everything? And then moments ago, Democrats held a press conference outside of where the deposition took place. Let me show you what went down. Here is Democratic Congress member Garcia, who's also the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Here's what he had to say.
From her. Secretary Clinton is also completely cooperating with the deposition and the committee and is answering questions in full faith and in good faith. What is not acceptable is oversight Republicans breaking their own committee rules that they established with the secretary and her team, which you've all reported and you've seen by releasing photos. Not acceptable, and it was gracious of the secretary and her team to continue the deposition.
More from Garcia here.
Getting this video transcript out immediately.
And to be clear, she's answering every question.
To be clear, she's answering all the questions.
Taking the fifth at all?
To be clear, she's answering all the questions. I think I can safely say that she's not taking the fifth.
Mr. Garcia.
Last question.
In terms of her relation.
More from Garcia here.
Lastly, I want to also add that this committee has now set a new precedent about talking to presidents and former presidents. And we're demanding immediately that we ask President Trump to testify in front of our committee and be deposed in front of oversight Republicans and Democrats. And that should happen immediately. He is the person that appears almost more than anyone else in the committee, and it needs to happen right now.
Mr. Chairman, do you distinguish at all between a president and a former president and a sitting president? I mean, is there something in there? Because they will say, wait a minute, we know what what the court ruled on his immunity.
We should depose the person that is mentioned in the Epstein files almost more than any other person next to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's Donald Trump.
Mr. Ryan,
We're gonna have a couple comments and then we're gonna.
How did that?
Then Democratic Congressmember Walkinshaw. Let's play this clip.
These questions. Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for? We held a deposition in this committee with Ghislaine Maxwell. She used that deposition as an opportunity to campaign for a pardon. Chairman Comer then walked out before many of you and gave her talking points as to why she should get a pardon. Donald Trump needs to direct Attorney General Bondi to release all the files, to unredact the illegal redactions, and he needs to unequivocally rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a monster convicted of child sex trafficking. Why has he not ruled out pardoning her? Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her? And then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions we should be asking about Ghislaine Maxwell. We no longer have to ask whether there's any relationship between Secretary Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was not.
Next, Democratic Congressmember Subramanian. Let's play it.
House Republicans need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public, because the reality is we're talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier today, Chairman Comer mentioned being open to talking to Secretary Lutnick. Well, let's get him in. Let's talk to Secretary Lutnick instead. Let's talk to someone who is neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who actually associated with Jeffrey Epstein, not someone who had never, ever met Jeffrey Epstein to their knowledge. And so let's try to talk about people who will help us with our investigation. And let's release the 2.5 million files so we can know who else to talk to and so we can do right by the victims and actually bring justice. Thank you.
Congresswoman Ansari, let's play it.
I also want to talk about the reporting from this week and the fact that we now know that the Department of Justice, in their ongoing cover-up, the most egregious cover-up in American history, intentionally seem to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable.
More from Congresswoman Ansari right here.
And today we are sitting through an incredibly unserious clown show of a deposition where members of Congress and the Republican Party are more concerned about getting their photo op of Secretary Clinton than actually getting to the truth and holding anyone accountable.
More from Democratic Congressmember Garcia. Let's play it.
Crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
When it comes to Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility when I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed. Mace then said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room? And was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet sat there in a chair with a reporter and lied to the American people. He should resign today. He should be removed from office, and at minimum, should come before the committee. I think everyone's been clear that we need to hear from Howard Lutnick.
Can you give us
Congressmember Garcia says, unedited, release that full transcript immediately. Let's play it.
Answer your question. 1 second. One statement, then one question. Last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to begin with a question. is we want to make a very clear demand right now, which is that the full transcript, unedited, of the secretary's questions and the answers need to be released by the majority in the next 24 hours. We need the public and the American people have a right to know exactly what she said, what questions were asked of her, and how she responded. That's transparency. She herself requested that the press and the public be allowed into the deposition. That was denied. And so at a very minimum, they need to immediately release the full transcript, and we're hopeful that tomorrow, for the former president, that the press would be allowed in and the public as well. That's been the request.
Democratic Congress member Bell from Missouri. Let's play it right here.
Wesley Bell, Missouri's 1st Congressional District. And as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses, and this ain't it. What we're seeing is political theater. What we're seeing is folks that are looking for headlines and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case, and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served. And it's important for us, and as oversight members, to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors, voices are heard as well. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing. The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out. But there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not want that for whatever reason. And so we're going to continue to push for justice. We're going to continue to work to make certain that the victims and survivors are given their due and their voices are heard, and that justice is ultimately served.
And just so you can see the clown show that is these MAGA Republicans, this is what state regime media was doing outside of the deposition. You'll see Lauren Boebert right there. This isn't Beetlejuice, Lauren Boebert. Here, play this clip.
Ultimately, this is going to be released on video, and everybody can make these decisions for themselves by watching the full and complete video when it's released.
Yeah, obviously, that's a live picture of Lauren Boebert there in Chappaqua. Chairman Comer said this testimony may also inform Congress.
Let me just take a look quickly at the statement that Hillary Clinton gave. Here's her opening statement. I'll read it for you right now. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee. As a former senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often, congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. The committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigation into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his islands, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I have been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crime. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before this committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys generals were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. The institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official rather than to seek the truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as the public who also wanted to get to the bottom of this matter. My heart breaks for the survivors, and I am furious on their behalf. I have spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to to stop the terrible abuses that so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all, but the survivors are real and they are entitled to better. Then she goes on to say, infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who work so hard to prevent sex trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump regime to the American people and the world cannot be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. This is a tragedy. It's a scandal. It deserves investigation and oversight. There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.